Now calling to order the case of Jordan Street versus Reese Taylor, cause number 18 CV 001-20. Plaintiff, you may proceed with pretrial.
Yes, Your Honor. Appearances for the record. My name is Eric Love. I represent the plaintiff in today's case, Jordan Street, on behalf of the decedent, Rory Street. I'm joined by my co-counsel, Ms. Lauren Doyd. Your Honor, we do have a few housekeeping matters before we get to substantive motions. First, I'd like to draw Your Honor's attention to the pretrial order, Section 3D. Just to point out to Your Honor that a couple of exhibits have already been pre-admitted into evidence, namely 16, 17, and 21. It's our experts' report, CV, and the weather report.
Okay.
Additionally, Your Honor, prior to today's trial, I was able to meet with opposing counsel and work out some other exhibits we'd be bringing in. Okay. With that's going to be Exhibit 3, the picture of Rory Street. Okay. And with Your Honor's permission, I'd like to use that during my opening statement. Absolutely.
And anything that's admitted, you can feel free to publish at your leisure. You don't have to ask me, although I won't be mad if you do. Just whatever's comfy.
Yes, Your Honor. The other thing, because this is a Zoom court bench trial, I just ask that if any time you or the other members on the bench that are not on screen can't see an exhibit or can't hear me, just let us know. We'll stop so we don't go on without them.
Okay, I'll be the conduit for that, unfortunately, just because we can't have a bunch of people stopping the round. But if there's an issue, I'll stop.
Yes, Your Honor. And then the only other issue I have is a substantive motion. I'm ready for that when Your Honor's ready.
I'm ready.
Your Honor, this case is a wrongful death case for context. Essentially what happened was Rory Street was an 18-year-old girl who died of a heat stroke on a soccer field after being pushed through a grueling series of drills by her coach. One of the issues in today's case is the standard of care that the coach violated. You'll hear that Coach Taylor, the defendant, went to a training at a sponsored event by the Texas High School Soccer Association. At that training, he was shown PowerPoint slides. We'd like to pre-admit those PowerPoint slides so that I can speak about them in my opening statement. They make up the standard of care in today's case.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. First, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dylan Shalabro, and I, along with my co-counsel, Andrew Edge, represent the defendant in this case, Coach Taylor. I do want to put the court on notice to clarify, this is not a standard of care case. This is a general negligence. The standard is ordinary care. There will be no mentions of standard of care in this case. I just want to put Your Honor on notice of that.
Okay, well, I mean, even in an ordinary negligence case, right, it is a ordinary person that is in the position of whoever the accused is of negligence, right? So there was always, I mean, respectfully, there was always a standard of care. And so there's not such a thing as a negligence case without one. Just, I mean, it's the ordinary person in the position of the individual that's accused of negligence.
Yes, Your Honor, that's all that I wanted to clarify. We have a motion addressing what I'm getting at later, but that's all I was going to clarify.
Do you have a response to this motion about this being admitted?
Your Honor, I didn't hear what he was seeking to admit. I do apologize.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and let you know. Please pay attention to that because it's important. He's trying to get admitted the PowerPoint.
Yes, sir. Which is, yeah, so I apologize. Exactly what I was talking about. So with the standard of care, this PowerPoint is inadmissible pursuant to hearsay and is also irrelevant and unfairly prejudicial. It's irrelevant, Your Honor, because it's not a mandatory thing that the coaches have to go to. It's not required as per his training as a coach, and it's unfairly prejudicial and misleads the jury as to what the standard of care in this case is. It's not what's set out in those guidelines. That's not the standard. They are merely guidelines and not rules. The standard in this case is ordinary care. And to imply some form of duty based on slides that are not mandatory and are not set rules is unfairly prejudicial.
Okay, response to that?
I'll address the hearsay first. These go to notice, right? These are PowerPoint slides that address drills, safe practices for all coaches in the state of Texas. There are guidelines for those coaches to follow. It goes to notice that the defendant saw these guidelines 3 months before he chose to ignore them and breach those guidelines. While they are guidelines and it doesn't substitute the ordinary care standard, it helps Your Honor in deciding this case on liability as to whether these guidelines could inform what safe practices would be, what ordinary care a coach in Texas should follow. So for that reason, they are relevant because they inform the decision-making not only of the coach, but of Your Honor in deciding liability on the issue of breach of duty.
Okay, I'm ready to make my ruling on this one. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I think point taken on both sides. I'm going to sustain the objection insofar as you're going to use the slides to establish that this is some sort of universal standard of care, right? Unless you were able to elicit testimony that establishes, right, that is the case, right, that Coach Taylor was somehow aware that this was best practices. If you elicit that on the stand, that's fine. You can go into that. But I'll sustain it insofar as it is just prima facie evidence that this is the standard of care. However, point well taken with the notice, and I'll overrule the objection insofar as it's solely used to establish notice. So what I'll say, defendant, when they use the exhibit, feel free to object if you feel like it's starting to go into the territory of this was the best practice. Certainly, if you're going to use it in the opening, I'd be cautious with that because you might draw an objection insofar as you seek to set that as some sort of scientific or final word on what the appropriate standard of care is beyond he was aware of these were some suggestions, right?
Yes,
Does that really make sense?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, do you have anything further, plaintiff, for pretrial?
Your Honor, we have no further motions.
Okay, so with that, defense, if you have anything for pretrial, you can begin now. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Starting with some preliminary housekeeping matters, we do want to ask if we can have free leave of the courtroom, of course, keeping in mind that we are in a virtual environment, so just within the purview of the camera. Okay, thank you. May I assume that all sidebars are constructive?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. May I assume all witnesses are pre-sworn, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, the exhibits in this case have been pre-marked. May I use those pre-markings?
You may. And Dylan, I think you might have not been in the room for this, so I'll say it again. Once something is admitted into evidence, you don't have to ask me to publish it, but you are free to do so. Just publish at your leisure once it's admitted.
Now, we also invoke Rule 615 and ask that Aubrey Saracen not be in the courtroom during this trial.
She's constructively not in the courtroom.
Further, Your Honor, this is a bifurcated trial. We would want to put the court on notice that we are only trying liability at this phase.
I'm aware.
As opposing counsel mentioned, there are some exhibits that have been pre-admitted, namely Exhibit 18, Spencer London's report, the toxicologist, along with Spencer London's CV, Exhibit 19. I will refer to those reports in closing argument if that's all right, and not get into the evidence at this time.
It's fine.
Now, as opposing counsel did mention, we were able to work out some things in pretrial. Opposing counsel has agreed not to mention any use of tents for shade being used after Rory's death.
Okay.
And they have also agreed to exclude any mention of a prior bad act from the defendant of pushing a player to the ground.
Okay.
With that, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed to opening statements.
Okay. Okay, so let me set the time. I will be very verbal with the time. I'll be giving it to you. At the end of your speech, I'll let you know what it is, and I'll announce it again. We'll stop. Time will start for objections. I will quickly stop the timer as quickly as I humanly can, and then we'll take the objections up. I'll try to let you know the time at that point too. If you have any issues with the timing, please let me know. All right, so 55 minutes on the clock. Plaintiff, whenever you begin talking, I'll start the clock.
Because the defendant, Coach Reese Taylor, lost her temper, Rory Street, an 18-year-old girl on her soccer team, lost her life. This happened on September 7, 2018, at a soccer field right next to Waco High School. It was 3 p.m. in the afternoon when practice started that day, and it was hot. It was 103 degrees, hot even for Waco. At the beginning of practice, Coach Taylor started his students doing a scrimmage. They were playing a game against each other. That scrimmage lasted an hour long. And after an hour of scrimmaging on the field, the star player on the team, Rory Street, began experiencing symptoms of a heat stroke. She was missing shots. She was missing passes. She was slowing down. Now, Coach Taylor, she doesn't like weakness. She pushes her players to be the best. So when she saw Rory Street, her star player, struggling, she told Rory Street she was useless. She sent her off to go run what they call the Burma Road. The Burma Road is a 60-yard field right next to the soccer field. And if you're going to run the Burma Road the way Coach Taylor wants you to run the Burma Road, you got to sprint as fast as you can to the 30-yard line, grab a ball, sprint as fast as you can all the way to the end. And when you get down those 60 yards, you get down on your hands and your knees, and you crawl back with your face in the dirt those 60 yards you came. But you don't just do it once. No, Rory Street had to do that until Coach Taylor said stop. Those were the rules. And Coach Taylor made it perfectly clear when she sent Rory off to go run in the Texas sun. She said, you don't stop running until you pass out. Rory Street wasn't the only girl running the Burma Road that day. You'll hear another 18-year-old girl was running alongside of her named Aubrey Saracen. She'll testify today. She'll tell you that as soon as Rory got to the Burma Run Road, she saw that she was paler than usual. She was weak. She saw those signs of heat stroke. Rory told her she was feeling funny. Rory told her that she had chest pains. Coach Taylor saw this. Coach Taylor saw that Rory still wasn't running fast enough. So what did Coach Taylor say? He said, come on down here. Come back to the field. You think you're special? Let me show you how not special you are. At that moment, Coach Taylor came up with a brand new punishment, one that she had never made any student ever do before. A brand new drill, special, just for Rory Street. He lined up the whole soccer team on one side of the field. He sent Rory to the other. He told Rory, you're going to dribble down this field as fast as you can, and I'm going to send everyone after you to slide tackle. Now, a slide tackle, members of the jury, you'll find out, or Your Honor, you'll hear a slide tackle is a move that takes place in the soccer game, where one player dribbles the ball along and the other player comes over and kicks out their feet and tries to knock the ball away from them. At this point, you'll hear Rory be described as lifeless, still weak, still pale, still slowly moving, still experiencing those symptoms of heat stroke. No breaks, no water, never asked if she was okay, never asked if anything was wrong. But Rory did what she was told. She grabbed that ball, she starts dribbling along. The first student runs up, knocks the ball out from under her, she falls to the ground. But Coach Taylor, she don't stop. She walks over to Rory, picks her up by the back of her collar and pulls her up to her feet. Do it again, she says. Second kid runs up to Rory, knocks her down on the ground. Third kid knocks her on the ground. Again and again and again, she's knocked to the ground to the 15th time. Rory Street don't get back up. That's why we're here today. Because Coach Taylor lost her temper, Rory Street lost her life on that field. Jordan Street's mother, or Jordan Street, Rory's mother, has brought a wrongful death claim against Coach Taylor for what she did. She's alleging that the negligence caused by Coach Taylor on the field that day caused Rory's death. That's what the evidence will show. Before we get to the rest of this evidence, I want to tell you a little bit more about who Rory was. We put up Exhibit 3. Your Honor, this is Rory Street. She was 18 years old when she died. She was a good kid. Soccer was her life. 24/7, every day of the week, she was playing soccer. Her and her mom shared the love of the sport together. They'd go travel to soccer games together. They had a favorite team. They'd go to tournaments. And she was good at it. She was a good athlete. Everyone will tell you that. But like any teenager, Rory made a few mistakes. A couple trips to the principal's office. And you'll hear today that after her death, there was a small amount of cocaine found in her system. You'll hear that Coach Taylor blames Rory for her own death. And the defense, they may try to do that too today. But you'll see through that argument. You'll see through that argument when you see the expert report from the top cardiologist here in Waco, Texas. 20 years of experience in the field, and he'll tell you that based on everything he saw, Rory Street died of a heat stroke. That those signs and symptoms of her getting weak, not running fast enough, missing shots, confusion, all that was symptoms of a heat stroke. And he was able to rule out the cocaine because it was such a small amount. You also see through that argument when you hear about her brain edema, a classic sign of a heat stroke. And Your Honor, you'll also see through that argument when you hear about the the guidelines passed down by the Texas Bar Association or the Texas Soccer High School Association. These guidelines that Coach Taylor saw. Coach Taylor saw these guidelines 3 months before Rory Street died. They talk about how to use slide tackles safely. What to do when you're practicing in weather over 100 degrees. You'll hear that she saw these. She didn't follow them. She also ignored the symptoms that Rory was experiencing on that field. But you also hear that she actively tried to hurt Rory. At a deposition just months after Rory's death, Coach Taylor was asked, when she was doing that drill, getting knocked down again and again and again, did it look like Rory was getting hurt? And you know what Coach Taylor said? That was the point. That was the point. Your Honor, I'm confident that when you hear all the evidence in today's trial, you'll see that the greater weight of the evidence supports liability. I'll ask for you to get that verdict. Thank you.
45:56 remaining. Okay, defense, your opening statement. I'll begin the timer when you start talking.
May it please the court. I cannot imagine what it must be like to lose a child. My heart goes out to Miss Street for the loss of hers. Now, in situations like these, it is natural to want to look for someone to blame. And that's often because the truth can be painfully hard to accept. And the hard truth in this case, Your Honor, is that Rory Street was using cocaine. And it was cocaine that caused Rory's death, not Coach Taylor. Now, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, Coach Taylor cannot be here with me today. But I do want to say some things about him. Coach Taylor is from here, right here in Waco, Texas. She's grown up here her whole life. She's been coaching sports for over 20 years, coaching soccer, volleyball, tennis, track, you name it, she's coached it. And for the past 6 years, she's been the head coach of the Waco High girls varsity soccer team. Now, we're going to be the first to tell you, Coach Taylor is not an easy coach. She's old school. She believes in hard work. She believes in discipline. She believes in putting the team over oneself. But you're also going to learn that Coach Taylor treats her kids no different than her players. They view them all the same. So she holds her players to the same standard that she would hold her own kids. So when she sees that a player is not giving it their best effort, not putting forth the kind of effort that will succeed in your future, not putting the team first, lollygagging or goofing off, Coach Taylor does what every coach at Waco has done for the past 35 years. She sends that player to Burma Road. Now, as this case plays out, I imagine that the plaintiff is going to play out Burma Road to be some kind of medieval practice, but that's not really what it is. Burma Road's something that's been in place for a long time. It's where students go to run sprints, they dribble the ball for 30 yards, they score, and then they bear crawl. Then they come back to practice. Which leads us to September 7th, 2018. It was normal practice. It was hot Waco summer. It was 3:15 as normal. Except on this practice, Coach Taylor's star player was not practicing as usual. Rory was missing wide open passes. Rory wasn't catching passes. Rory wasn't scoring open goals. Coach Taylor perceived that Rory was goofing off. So Coach Taylor did what every coach at Waco does. She sent Rory to Burma Road. Now you're going to learn that while Rory was at Burma Road, Coach Taylor did not see any signs of Rory struggling. No one came to Coach Taylor and said that Rory was struggling. All Coach Taylor perceived is that Rory was still not giving it her best efforts. So Coach Taylor called her back. So come out, we're going to find a new way to get you focused. So let's do some slide drills. Now, like Burma Road, slide drills are not the medieval practice the plaintiff will like you to believe that they are. Slide drills are a normal part of soccer. You flip on the TV, any Premier League soccer game you watch, any soccer match for that matter, you will see defensive players performing slide tackles. It's how they come in, slide in, take the ball so that their team can go back on offense. Slide tackles are a normal part of the game, and even the plaintiff's own witnesses will testify to that. You're going to learn that slide tackles, they need to be taught how to be done properly for player safety. Players need to learn how to avoid them. And you're going to learn that on September 7th, 2018, Rory was doing these slide tackles. And the evidence is going to show that while she was performing that drill, not Jesse Merriweather, the trainer, nor Coach Taylor saw any signs that suggested Rory needed immediate medical attention. Your Honor, that's because nobody, including Coach Taylor, knew that Rory had used cocaine on the day of practice. Now, the plaintiff has brought this case, and it is the plaintiff's burden of proof. They have to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that not only did Coach Taylor fail to exercise ordinary care, but that Coach Taylor was the proximate cause. Coach Taylor's conduct was the proximate cause of Rory Street's death. And the plaintiff is going to fail to meet that burden because the plaintiff will fail to show that the defendant, Coach Taylor, did not exercise ordinary care. You're going to hear from Jessie Merriweather, that trainer, that day. She's going to testify that any time Coach Taylor perceived that a player needed medical attention, the first place she sent that player was Jessie Merriweather. Ms. Merriweather is going to testify that she was at that practice that day. And she could see Rory at Burma Road. She could see Rory during the slide tackle drills. And at no point did she see any sign that Rory needed immediate medical assistance. Ms. Merriweather is also going to testify that any time a player wanted water, all they had to do was ask, regardless of a break. Your Honor, we've also put forth the affirmative defense of comparative negligence. And help us meet that burden, you're going to hear through a report from a Mr. London. Mr. London is a toxicologist with over 200 cases of experience, testified in 50 trials. Mr. London is going to testify to that cocaine use. And you're going to learn that some of the symptoms of cocaine, some of the implications are heart attack, cardiac arrhythmia, cerebral hemorrhage, stroke, and heart failure. And Mr. London, in that report, is going to testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Rory Street's death was at least in part caused by cocaine use. And Your Honor, the plaintiff also has to prove that this death was foreseeable. Your Honor, meaning any ordinary person could foresee that doing ordinary drills at soccer practice would take Rory Street's life, meaning Coach Taylor would be able to predict, even guess, that her star player would come to practice high on cocaine. Your Honor, the truth in this case can be painfully hard to accept under the circumstances. But the hard truth in this case is that Rory Street was using cocaine. And it was Rory Street's cocaine use that caused her death. Not Coach Taylor.
$48.05 remaining. All right, we're now ready to begin with plaintiff's case in chief. You can either call your first witness or read whatever you'd like into the record. As soon as you begin talking, I'll start your timer.
Yes, Your Honor. Before we call any live witnesses, I'm going to read portions of Jordan Street's deposition. If I can have Ms. Doyle come up on the screen.
Sure.
Your Honor's reference, the lines we'll be reading start on page 3, lines 14. Or I apologize, it's line 13, the question.
Sounds good.
Where did she go to school?
Rory went to Waco High, just like me.
Did Rory participate in any sports?
Yes, she played varsity soccer for the school. She also played soccer for a private traveling club team on the weekends. To be honest, that kid's life was pretty much soccer 24/7. Getting her to read a book was the hard part.
When did Rory start playing soccer?
Oh gosh, when she was little, 4 or 5 years old. I went and signed her up to get her started just being out and being athletic and being around other kids. But she took right to it and never looked back. Before you knew it, we were spending weekends driving all over Texas to soccer tournaments, and the next 12 or so years were kind of a blur. Soccer tournaments, soccer practice, soccer camps, soccer everything.
Was Rory good?
Oh, Rory was a superb athlete. She had gotten several scholarship offers from Division I programs to play soccer in college. Southern Methodist University, Dallas Baptist University, Austin College, and the University of Texas at Dallas. They had all offered her a scholarship. It was so exciting to think about being able to watch her play at the top level in college against some of the best in the country. Plus, she would have gotten a great education. She had such a bright future, and I was excited to see it all play out.
Was soccer something the two of you shared?
You know, I played soccer in college, so I already loved the game. But I didn't care what the sport was. I just loved having a kid that was into sports of any kind. I loved getting up on the weekends when she was little to go kick the ball in the backyard and let her try to dribble it past me. I loved talking about games and strategy. It brought back so many memories of my playing days. But this was even better because it was my kid and it made her so happy. By the time Rory was in high school, we even had a favorite team, West Ham United, that we would root on together every weekend during the English Premier League season. We loved going to T-Bone's barbecue to watch matches. I thought we would be forever blowing bubbles.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle. Your Honor, that concludes the deposition testimony. At this point, we'll be calling Aubrey Saracen.
Your Honor, briefly, as the defense, can we give our cross-examination via deposition of Ms. Street?
Let's just save it for your case in chief. If that's all right, you can read other portions of that deposition in when it's time for your case in chief, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you're at 4331. Ms. Saracen, are you available?
Yes, I'm here.
Okie dokie. Whenever you start talking, I'll start your timer again. 4331.
Good afternoon, Ms. Saracen.
Good afternoon.
Will you please state your name for the record?
My name is Aubrey Saracen.
Saracen, where do you go to school?
I go to school at Waco High.
What year are you?
I'm a senior.
Did you play any sports at the school?
Yes, I've been on the varsity soccer team for 4 years.
Did you play with someone named Rory Street?
Yes.
How well do you know Rory?
I know Rory very well. We grew up playing soccer together our whole lives, and we played soccer together for the 4 years at Waco High as well.
How often did you see her?
I saw her every day at school and at practice, and throughout my life growing up.
How was she as an athlete?
She was a great soccer player. She was probably the best on the team.
Who was your coach when you were a soccer player at Waco High School?
Coach Taylor.
And how's your relationship with Coach Taylor?
She was a good coach while she was here, but she had a coaching style that sort of tried to intimidate us and kind of make us scared if we did bad.
What do you mean by that?
If we did bad during practice, she punished us.
How would she punish you?
If you weren't doing well that day or any other reason, she would make us run Burma Road.
Did she ever raise her voice or yell at any of the kids?
Yes.
I want to talk about a specific day at soccer practice on September 7th. Were you at practice that day?
Yes, I was.
Can you begin by telling us what time practice started that day?
Practice started at 3:15 that day.
What was the weather like?
It was really hot that day, probably over 100 degrees.
And where were you playing at?
I was playing on the scrimmage field. We were having a scrimmage, but then Coach Taylor sent me out to Burma Road.
Okay, before we get to Burma Road, I want to talk a little bit more about the soccer field. Would you recognize a photograph if I showed it to you?
Yes.
I want you to pull up Exhibit 6. Are you able to do that on your end?
Yes.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the field as you remember it?
Yes, it is.
A representation of the field. Your Honor, at this time we move Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, it's admitted and you can publish it.
Is this the field you would play on?
Yes.
You said it was hot that day. Is there anywhere on this field where you can get out of the sun?
No.
Is there anywhere on this field or in the surrounding area where you can get in the shade?
No.
When you would come to soccer practice or a game here, is there any water available by the coaches?
Yes, but there weren't designated breaks to get water.
Could you go get your water whenever you wanted, or did you have to wait for a break?
We could get it whenever we wanted.
Okay. You can put Exhibit 6 down. You mentioned that you were asked to run Burma Road.
Yes.
I want to talk about that for a second. Can you explain to the jury or the judge what Burma Road is?
Yes. So during Burma Road, you run about 30 yards and you dribble the ball. And then you kick a ball into the field post, and then you do a bear crawl back 60 yards to the starting point.
What is a bear crawl?
It's crawling on your hands and knees, like a bear would crawl if you saw a bear.
And you said it was hot that day. Do you know how hot it was temperature-wise? Exactly.
I believe it was 103 degrees, over 100.
Your Honor, can I pull up Exhibit 21?
Absolutely. It's pre-admitted?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Doig? And what you said practice started about 3:15 that day. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you read, for the record, what the temperature says next to 251? It's in that red circle.
100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Now there's another time underneath. It says 351. Were you still outside on the soccer field at that time?
Yes.
And what's that temperature say next to it?
103 degrees Fahrenheit.
All right, you can take that down, Ms. Doig. So you're on that day when you're practicing, right? You said you were on Burma Road at one point. Why'd you go over there?
Because coach had yelled at me for messing up during practice and told me that I needed to go to Burma Road.
Okay, before you got sent to Burma Road, what was the team doing? What kind of practice?
They were in a scrimmage.
And how long did that scrimmage last?
Practice started at 3:15, and I got told to go to Burma Road around 4:30, and they kept scrimmaging after that.
Was that over an hour?
Yes.
So you're on Burma Road. Are you doing the running and the bear crawling at that point?
Yes.
When you run Burma Road, how many times do you have to run down the field and then bear crawl back?
You just keep going until coach tells you to stop.
Were you running the Burma Road by yourself?
At the beginning, yes.
You said at the beginning. Did anyone come later?
Yes.
Who did?
Rory came later.
Do you know why Rory was sent over there?
I remember coach yelling at him about something that went on during practice, and he told him that he was useless on the field, so he might as well go run until he passed out.
When Coach Taylor called Rory useless and said run till you pass out, did Rory go over to Burma Road then?
Yes.
Did Rory run?
He started doing Burma Road with me until I noticed he wasn't feeling well.
You said you noticed she wasn't feeling well. What do you mean by that? What can you describe what she looked like?
She was really struggling. I'd never really seen her act like that. And she looked really pale, and she told me that she just wasn't feeling great. And she looked like she wasn't feeling great at all.
You said she wasn't feeling great. Did she complain about any specific physical symptoms?
Yes, she said her chest was hurting.
When you saw her, you said she wasn't feeling well. She complained of chest pain. Did she ever get a break at that point?
No.
Did Coach Taylor come up and ask her if she was okay?
No.
How long were you two running together?
For probably about 15 minutes or so until coach yelled at her again.
When Coach yelled at her after about 15 minutes on Burma Road, do you remember what Coach said then?
Yes, she noticed that something was up there and basically told Rory that she isn't special and she'll show her how not special she is, and to come back down on the scrimmage field.
So when Coach told Rory she'd show her how not special she is, did Rory listen to Coach and go to the field?
Yes.
After Burma Road, were you still watching what Rory was doing?
Yes.
At any point, did you see Coach go up to her and ask her if she was okay then?
No.
Did she get any breaks then?
No.
Did she get any water?
No.
What happened back at the field after she ran Burma Road in scrimmage?
Well, the entire team lined up and in a single file line, and Rory stood about 15 feet in front of them, and they started to do the slide tackle drill.
Let me stop you right there. Can you tell us what a slide tackle is?
Yes, it's basically like what happened here. Rory was there dribbling the ball, and someone would run up towards them and try to steal the ball from them by kicking and sliding underneath, like where they're dribbling the ball.
Okay. Now, do slide tackles, do they normally happen in soccer games?
Yeah, they happen pretty frequently.
Did you practice slide tackles before?
Yes, during scrimmages.
So this particular drill, where all the teams lined up on one side and there's one kid on the other side, did that ever happen before?
Not like this. That had never happened before.
Did any other kid that day on the field have to line up on the other, while the other side's here and they're by themselves? Did anyone else do that drill like that?
No.
Was it only Rory?
Yes.
So when that drill's going on, the first kid, did they end up doing the slide tackle drill?
Yes.
They tell me what happened when the first kid went up.
The first kid went up, did the slide tackle, and Rory was knocked over. And whenever he was knocked over, he seemed like he was struggling a little bit, and coach came and pulled him from his jersey to get up off the ground.
You said coach pulled her by her jersey. What part of her jersey did coach grab?
From the back of her jersey to pull her back up.
Okay. And when coach pulled her by her jersey, the back of her jersey, was she able to get back up then?
Yes.
Did coach say anything when she was pulling her up by the back of her jersey like that?
No.
Did the slide tackling drill that never happened before continue?
Yes.
How many times during that day did Rory get knocked down from that slide tackling drill?
15 times.
And after the 15th time of her getting knocked down and getting back up, what happened?
She couldn't get back up. She started shaking. She started having a seizure, that's what it looked like, and just laid there on the ground after that 15th time getting knocked over.
What did Coach Taylor do when Rory was shaking on the ground like that?
Coach Taylor didn't do anything that I knew of.
Well, did Coach Taylor call 911?
No.
Did anyone call 911?
The team called 911 after the trainer told us that we needed to.
When you say the team, you mean the kids on the team?
Yes.
Do you know if Rory died that day?
He did die that day.
Saracen, I'm sorry for your loss, but thank you so much for your testimony. I have no further questions for this witness at this time. I'll pass the witness.
Okay, so you've got 29:58 remaining. Just 1 second here. We actually have an excess scoring judge, so one of the scoring judges is going to leave. I just wanted to make y'all aware it's not an error. Miss A Strike is going to exit the room, but we have an excess of scoring judges. That's why we're dismissing one. So just so everybody's clear, that's not an error. Miss A Strike, you can exit the room if you're ready. And with that, then we can switch over to cross. You've got, let's see, 48:05. Give me 1 second to set the clock, and I will start it running as soon as you start talking.
Your Honor, right before proceeding to cross-examination, can I reset my camera view so I can better see Saracen? Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Saracen, Rory was your best friend.
Yes,
You and Rory grew up together.
we did.
Y'all played soccer together over a lot of years.
Yes.
Y'all would spend the night at each other's houses.
Yes,
You guys were really close.
we were.
You really admired the way Rory played soccer.
I did.
You and Rory, you both played for Coach Taylor.
Yes.
And Saracen, you do not like Coach Taylor.
I thought his coaching style was a little aggressive, but he was a coach.
Saracen, Coach Taylor's daughter replaced you in the starting lineup.
She did.
You were upset about that.
I was.
Your opinion of it was that it was all crap.
Yeah. I still played. I mean, anyone would be mad when their spot is taken.
So you were upset.
Yes.
Now you're here testifying against Coach Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Saracen, I want to talk about the practice on September 7th, 2018. It was hot that day, as we saw.
It was.
Now, you've been playing soccer at Waco for the past 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
School usually gets out about 3.
Yes.
You guys go to soccer practice right after school.
Yes.
Soccer practice is typically always at 3:15.
That's correct.
Soccer season is always in late August and September.
Yes.
So you guys were pretty used to that heat.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything out of the ordinary.
I mean, every day is hot. You don't really get used to it, but I mean, it's hot in Waco in the summers.
So a lot of your practices were hot.
Yes.
And Ms. Saracen, you've testified before that coach would at least give you 1 break at practice.
Yes.
Now I want to talk to you some about those slide tackle drills we heard about. Slide tackles are a normal part of the game.
Yes.
As a midfielder, you'd agree with me that slide tackles are often needed as a defensive player.
That's true.
It's one of the best ways to get the ball away from the other player and get back on offense.
Yes.
And you said on direct examination that slide tackles, drills are something that you guys do.
That's true.
It's important to know how to avoid getting slide tackled.
Yes.
And Ms. Saracen, you observed Rory on that day,
Yes.
and you texted your friend after all that had happened. You said, Rory had just collapsed out of nowhere.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Okay, let's hear the objection.
Your Honor, this is an excited utterance.
Hold on. Let's let him present the grounds for the objection. Then I'll give you a chance to respond. Then I'm going to let him have the last word on his objection. Okay, let's proceed that way. So, Mr. Love, your objection.
Your Honor, the grounds are hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. This is a text message that was sent a day after the death of Rory Street.
Okay. Defense.
Your Honor, the temporal limitation for an excited utterance exception is only that the person that is perceiving that excitement is still under that threat. Miss Saracen's best friend died that day. She wasn't just going to get over that friend dying in one day. Saying that she saw her pass out and collapse unexpectedly was her excited utterance and her then existing state of mind of what happened.
Plaintiff.
Your Honor, my response would be this text message contains 2 people's words. So for that reason, the text message would be hearsay. But as far as the excited utterance exception, there's been no foundation laid that this witness or the declarant of that, either of those statements was under the stress of the event at the time the statement was made. Without laying the foundation that the stress of the event was still affecting the declarant, it doesn't fall under 803.2.
Your Honor, if I can be heard briefly.
How about this? Hold on. Let me finish talking before you start talking, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'll sustain the objection. Can you elicit the testimony to establish, lay the predicate for an excited utterance, okay? We'll proceed that way. So you can proceed with this line of questioning. Let's just go back a couple steps, establish that she wasn't in an excited state, and then you can continue, okay?
Your Honor, what about the excited utterance or the then existing state of mind response?
Okay, so explain that to me. How it was her then existing state of mind. So 24 hours later, it was her then existing state of mind?
Yes, Your Honor, but it wasn't the then existing state of mind. It's what she was feeling that and the moment she sent the message. The minute she sent that message is when she was perceiving that feeling.
Your Honor, if I could respond to that.
Sure.
Under 803.3, a then existing mental state or condition, it's someone describing what's going on internally inside of them. It's describing physical symptoms, describing what they're thinking. This is not that kind of statement. She's describing an event that occurred the day before, not her physical internal symptoms or thoughts or feelings, not 803.3.
I would agree with that, and let's just do it this way. I don't think it's a problem. I think this is going to come in. Why don't you just establish that she was still under the duress of watching her best friend pass, lay that predicate. I think that's going to satisfy plaintiff, and then we can move on from there. If you feel he doesn't lay the predicate correctly, you can object again. Give me 1 second to start the timer again. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Silverbrook.
Ms. Saracen, you mentioned that Rory was your best friend.
Yes.
You mentioned that you watched Rory that day.
Yes.
You mentioned that you watched her pass away.
Yes.
That affected you, didn't it?
It did.
That did not just affect you on that day.
That's true.
Still affects you.
Yes.
And when you sent that message, you said that you perceived Rory had
Objection.
collapsed out of nowhere.
Your Honor, I'm renewing my objection. At this point, Your Honor, 803.2 requires more than just someone who's grieving over a period of time. If that were the case, most of us could say we are still mourning the passing of a loved one, and therefore.
Mr. Love, you interrupted the question where he's trying to finish laying that predicate that you requested he lay, right? You wanted him to establish that she was in an excited state 24 hours later. So the question that had come out of his mouth was an attempt to lay that predicate. He was asking about the state of mind during the period where that message was sent. So why don't we let before you object, before the objectionable testimony comes in, why don't we see if he can finish laying the predicate? And if you feel that he hasn't done it, once he's done laying that predicate and starts to elicit that testimony, then raise that objection. So let's go ahead and resume the time when you start talking, Mr. Silentbro. Witness, do you remember the question that he just asked you with respect to what your mental state was at the time of the text message?
Yes.
If you can resume answering that question, I'll start the timer when the witness starts talking.
I was very upset and heartbroken. It was one of my best friends for my whole life growing up.
And what did you say to your friend when you messaged of what happened on that day? Did you say that it was, I want to make sure I get your words right, so don't let me speak out of where, but you said she collapsed out of nowhere.
Yes.
And you agree with me, out of nowhere means unexpectedly.
Yes.
Now, Saracen, Rory was using cocaine, wasn't she?
I never knew her to use it before.
Saracen, you knew Rory was real stressed out.
Yes.
She had a lot of pressure on her.
Yes.
Pressure from her parents.
Yes.
She had the pressure of trying to live up to the expectations of Division I recruiters.
Yes.
She had the pressure of trying to perform.
Yes.
Saracen, you're aware that when Rory died, there was cocaine found in her system.
Yes.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
4337 remaining. Any redirect for this witness?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that amicable to the defense as well? I'm assuming so. Okay, she's gone. All right, plaintiff, you have 2958 remaining, and you may proceed as you like, or are you resting your case in chief?
Your Honor, I would like to show portions of the expert report of our expert, Dr. McConaughey.
You may do so, and when you begin talking, I'll start the timer.
And Ms. Stoy, could you please put up page 2 of the report? So I'm just going to read it aloud for the court's reference. Overview of opinions. Here is the opinion that I've reached in this case based on a reasonable degree of professional or medical certainty. Rory Street died as a result of heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. And then I'm going to, if you could do the other call out, Ms. Stoy. The major symptoms of heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke are as follows. And I'm just going to read the highlighted portions that are included. Red or pale skin, weakness, nausea, confusion, disorientation, fatigue, seizures. Then I also have portions of the autopsy report as well. First, I believe this is Ms. Stoy, is this the autopsy report or is it the same report? This is I'm sorry, I have to adjust my screen, Your Honor, one moment. Okay. First, the autopsy report indicated that Rory Street had a cerebral edema. Cerebral edema is often caused by and is completely consistent with heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. That's from page 3 of the expert report. Ms. Stoy? And with that, Your Honor, we concluded our evidence and we rest.
You have 2830 remaining. Before we proceed to defendant's case in chief, do we have any motions that we need to take up?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense raises a Rule 50 judgment as a matter of law.
1 second to set your clock, and you may begin.
Viewing the evidence in light most favorable to the non-moving party, any reasonable juror would conclude that the plaintiff has failed to meet their burden by a preponderance of the evidence. We have not heard any testimonies to suggest that Coach Taylor could foresee that Rory Street would come to practice on cocaine and that by coming to practice and doing drills, she would die.
I'm going to deny that motion because I think that has been established that there is at least some evidence of foreseeability here. So that motion is denied, and you can begin by calling your first witness or reading something into the record, however you want to proceed with your case in chief.
All right, this time the defense calls Coach Reese Taylor to the stand.
And whenever you start talking, I'll begin your time. 42:59 remaining.
Can you please introduce yourself to us?
Ms. Taylor, you're muted.
I'm Reese Taylor.
Thank you. Reese, do you mind if I call you Coach?
Yeah, that would be great.
Coach, tell me what you do for a living.
I am a coach at Waco High School and
Where-
a health teacher as well.
Where are you from?
I'm from Waco. I've lived here all my life except for college.
Well, tell me about college. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Texas A&M in College Station. I studied physical education.
What did you do once you graduated?
I started coaching and teaching health immediately.
About how long have you been coaching?
Ooh, I guess it's been like more than 25 years now.
Tell us about all the things that you coach.
Well, pretty much all the girls' sports. I coach women's track, volleyball, softball, basketball, and soccer, like I do now.
Where are you coaching soccer now?
I coach soccer at Waco High.
About how long have you been coaching soccer at Waco High?
At Waco High, I've been there, I think about 6 years, but I've coached soccer for probably more than 20 seasons altogether.
Now, Coach Taylor, was Rory Street one of your athletes?
She was.
Tell me about Rory.
She was a superstar athlete. She had a lot of promise, really one of my best girls on the team.
What was your relationship like with Rory?
You know, I think we had a good, healthy coach-athlete relationship. She was usually very respectful, listened to me, and like I said, she was a great player, so it was easy to like her.
Now, what about on September 7th, 2018? How was Rory that day?
She was a little different. She was not taking practice seriously, kind of goofing off. That was a bit out of character for her, but pretty typical of most teenage girls.
When Rory wasn't playing up to her normal standard, did you offer any criticisms?
I'm sorry, what was that?
When Rory wasn't playing to her normal standard, did you offer any kind of criticisms?
Yes, I told her she really wasn't doing her best. And what was most frustrating was that she didn't seem to be listening and responding to what I was saying. I know every player has an off day sometimes, but when that happens, I really expect my girls to take my constructive criticism and work with me. And she just really wasn't doing that.
Christelle, how did she respond to your criticisms?
She, like I said, she just really wasn't responding to them. She didn't seem to be taking it to heart. She just was really goofing off that day.
So what did you do when she wasn't responding to your criticisms?
I decided to run Burma Road, the Burma Road drill with her.
Tell us, Coach Taylor, what is Burma Road?
So it's a drill. The player sprints 30 yards, then dribbles a ball for 30 yards, then shoots the ball to the goal, and then bear crawls back the 60 yards.
Coach Taylor, did you create the Burma Road drill?
Definitely not. Burma Road is decades old. I ran Burma Road when I was a soccer player at Waco High. Everyone's very familiar with Burma Road.
Coach Taylor, my mom told me never to ask this kind of question, but how long ago has it been since you ran Burma Road?
Well, since I was in high school, I hate to say, I guess that would be about 30 years.
And were you able to see Rory when she was running Burma Road?
I could see she was at the other end of the field, but I was working with the rest of the players.
When you saw Rory at Burma Road, how did she appear to you?
She was fine. It seemed to tire her out, but that was sort of the point. It was discipline, but nothing really out of the ordinary.
Were you able to perceive if she was taking the drill seriously?
No, she seemed to still be sort of goofing off during Burma Road as well.
So what did you do when you saw Rory goofing off at Burma Road as well?
Well, I decided that more discipline was necessary, and so I ran a slide tackle drill with her and the other girls.
And before we get into that drill, tell us briefly what a slide tackle is.
So a slide tackle is when a defensive player attempts to get the ball from someone who has the ball and is dribbling it, so that defensive player would literally slide and try to hit the ball with their feet to make that person not have possession anymore.
Now, is a slide tackle drill something you've done before?
Not exactly this drill, but yeah, we practice slide tackles all the time. They come up in games frequently. So it's something I want the girls to be prepared for and feel comfortable with.
But tell us, why is it important to prepare your girls to know how to deal with slide tackles?
Well, it can be one of the more dangerous things that happens in a soccer game. It is physical. And so I want them to be prepared, and, it's a cliche, but practice makes perfect. So I want their safety is my top priority. So something that's a little more dangerous like that, it's important that they practice that.
Now, how many times did Rory do that drill that day?
I guess probably about 14 or 15 of the girls slide tackled Rory.
Coach Taylor, when you had Rory doing these slide tackle drills, were you angry?
No, I wasn't angry. I was frustrated, but it was more of just a regular sort of discipline thing. The girls know, I get it. I was a teenage girl once too, so I get that sometimes you want to goof off, but the girls know that when that happens, there will be consequences.
Do your players know that slide tackling is part of the game?
Yes, absolutely.
During this drill, Coach Taylor, how did Rory appear?
She was struggling, but not any more than I would expect with a challenging drill like that. And she certainly didn't appear to need medical attention.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned medical attention. Does Waco High provide trainers for athletic events?
Yes, I always have trainer Jess Merriweather is our trainer at Waco High. She's at every practice.
You said she's at every practice?
That's right.
Now, why is it important for Jess Merriweather to be the trainer to be at every practice?
It's sort of twofold, kind of the obvious, just sometimes, unfortunately there can be injuries, sprained ankles, things like that at practices. So it's good to have a trainer there to be prepared for that. And also, it's a lot of girls. I can't keep my eye on everyone at all times. So it's good to have another set of eyes there.
Now, Coach Taylor, at any course during the practice on September 7th, 2018, did your trainer say anything to you that would indicate that Rory would need immediate medical attention?
No.
Miss Merriweather, did anyone come talk to Miss Merriweather that Rory wasn't feeling well?
Not that I'm aware of.
No one brought anything to your attention?
No.
Now, Coach Taylor, did you have any reason to believe that Rory was using cocaine?
No, absolutely not.
I have to witness at this time, Your Honor. Thank you, Coach Taylor.
34:44 remaining. Let me reset your clock, Eric, real quick. You've got 28:30. And you begin with cross, and I will start the time when you start talking.
Coach Taylor, you blame Rory Street for her own death, don't you?
it seems like it was the cocaine use that caused her death, unfortunately. I don't know why she would have been doing something like that. I mean, it's tragic.
You blame her for her own death, don't you?
Blame her. Yes, I mean, it seems like the cocaine use is what caused her death.
And you take no responsibility for what happened to her on your soccer field.
Well, I don't want to sound heartless, but I would never let my girls be in danger like that. And if I had any idea that that was a possibility, I wouldn't have run that drill with Rory.
Well, to be clear, you wouldn't have changed anything you did that day, is what you said at your deposition, right?
Had I known that there was a potential because of her cocaine use, that she was on cocaine, that could cause her to die, no, I would have certainly changed.
I'm not asking about the cocaine use. I'm asking you if you would change anything you did that day.
No, with the knowledge that I had that day, I think I ran the day the right way. Now, looking back, obviously, I know that it was.
So it's your testimony. You wouldn't have had one less kid knock her to the ground that day?
Maybe I'm not being clear. Given my knowledge at the time that day, no, I think that the actions I took were very typical of a Texas soccer coach. Now, knowing what the outcome was, obviously, yes, my actions would have been different.
Let's talk about why you know better, Coach. You've coached for 26 years.
That's right.
You've taught softball,
Yes.
basketball,
Yes.
volleyball,
Yes.
of course, soccer for 20.
Mm-hmm.
You go to clinics.
Yes.
You go to seminars.
Yes.
You go to all different kinds of training exercises, right?
Yes.
So that you can learn from other coaches.
Yes.
So that you can learn the best coaching techniques.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that you can learn the best safety practices.
Yes.
I want to talk about one seminar that you went to. Can you put up Exhibit 11, please, Ms. Stoy? Coach, you recognize this.
Yes.
This is a PowerPoint slide that you saw at a Texas High School Soccer Coach Association, right?
That's right.
An annual meeting.
Sorry?
It was an annual meeting that you have every year.
Yes. Yeah.
And the meeting that year was on June 15th, 2018.
Yes.
You saw this PowerPoint that day.
Yes.
That was about 3 months before Rory died.
Yes.
So let's talk about what you learned at this Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association meeting 3 months before she died. Next slide, please. When temperatures reach 100 degrees or above, you see where it says that right there, circled in red?
I did.
That day it was over 100 degrees, right?
I think that's right.
It says practices must include a 5-minute break every 15 minutes of practice in the shade if possible, right?
Right.
Now there was no shade there, right?
Correct.
No shade on your soccer field or any of the fields in that area, right?
Right.
And you didn't set up any tents or anything like that right then, did you?
No.
So you didn't provide any shade with the tent or anything like that at that time?
No.
Okay, so because you couldn't do it in the shade, you still should have given them a break every 5 minutes. That's what this says, right?
That's right. We didn't have instituted breaks. We had water set up. You could get water.
I'm not talking about water. I'm saying breaks. It says there that you should give a break every 5 minute, a 5-minute break every 15 minutes. Is that right?
It does.
Now I want to talk about what happened with Rory that day on September 7th, right? So Rory did a scrimmage. She was a part of that scrimmage you did, right?
Yes.
Okay. You don't remember if you gave him a break during that scrimmage, do you?
No, I don't remember.
Rory then ran the Burma run, right?
Burma Road. Yes.
The Burma Road. She ran that.
Yes.
You remember if you gave her a break then?
I don't remember.
You then made Rory line up on the other side of 15-meter players, right?
Right.
She ran a drill at that point, right?
Right.
A new drill you had never done before. Excuse me, please go back to the last slide, Ms. Doy. A drill you had never run before, right?
Right. Yeah, not exactly that drill.
Okay. And during that whole time, you don't know if you gave Rory a break.
I don't remember. The girls were free to ask for a break and get water themselves. So no, I don't tell them they have to take a break.
Okay, but you heard the testimony of Miss Saracen when you were in court today, right?
Yes.
You heard her say she knows that Rory had no breaks doing the Burma run, right?
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
And because you don't know, you can't dispute that, right?
That's right.
She said she knows that there were no breaks for Rory during that drill you made her run.
That Rory didn't take any breaks. Yeah, I mean, I believe that could be true.
So you as the coach didn't tell Rory to take a break during the 15 minutes of practice, right? Because that went on longer than 15 minutes. Is that true?
Yes.
There was no 5-minute break for Rory at any of those points, right?
No.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, Ms. Doig. Now this is a slide that talks about teaching tackling, fly tackles. You remember seeing this?
Yes.
3 months.
Your Honor, objection. Can we approach constructively?
Sure.
Your Honor, we feel that we're getting a little close to arguing substance. If opposing counsel wants to argue, now you could have done this, you could have done this. We have no objection.
The question just was, did she see this?
No, it was prior, Your Honor. I'm not talking about anything that was asked right now, but
It was prior?
yeah, Your Honor, a few questions have been asked, and I just want to go ahead and put it on the record. If we're getting close to substantive, I just want to kind of bring it back to things she could have done.
The stuff I've already.
For your pretrial order, Your Honor.
Okay,
If I can respond.
sure.
The door's closed, I'd say, on those questions so far, but going forward, I'm just saying she testified already that she goes to these seminars to learn from other coaches, to learn best practices, to learn safety.
I don't think she's testified it's to learn best practices. I think the questions that you elicited were that she's gone to these things to learn tips and to learn things. I mean, I think that's fair enough. We know what the testimony is. I think let's settle this way. Mr. Silebro, I think your objection is certainly untimely as to anything that was previously said, right? I mean, he's gone on ad nauseum about the previous slide. So insofar as the objectionable testimony, came prior, you need to raise that objection before the objectionable testimony comes in because it doesn't do us a whole lot of good right now. I'll instruct the jurors as follows, just to be safe. Jurors are, whoever, I know this is such an odd setup, but jurors, you are instructed to take Ms. Taylor's testimony only for what it's worth, which is that she did in fact see these things. You also heard previously from Coach Taylor that she did attend these things to learn things. That is the extent of the testimony that she's been given. Mr. Love, I'll encourage you, if you're trying to establish this as a standard, right, as some sort of medical or expert standard for how a practice has to be run, you have not done so. If you start to approach that, raise that objection before that testimony is elicited. Is that a fair ruling?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's right.
Okay. And once you begin talking again, Mr. Love, I will start your time. You have 21:19 right now.
I just want to be clear, Coach, you go to trainings like this one to learn safety techniques, right?
I do. I mean, it's sort of tips and tricks for coaching, right? They're not requirements.
Sure, they're not laws,
Right.
right? Not laws, you don't have to follow them. But they're meetings among all of the coaches in the state of Texas that coach high school, right?
Yes.
You all get together and you have these meetings to discuss these techniques.
Yes.
Okay, so this is talking about slide tackles, and you see there it says cause serious injury to an opponent or the player themselves. You see that where it says that, right?
I do.
Can you go to the next part, Ms. Stoig? So it says at the top, hit it again, Ms. Stoig. I think there should be another line. Maybe not. But it says, so when teaching slide tackling, you see where it says that next to the arrow up top?
Yes.
So teaching slide tackling, we're talking about practice, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it says, well, when teaching slide tackling, make sure you instruct your players to, and then the second one in red says, don't tackle unless it's necessary. Is that right?
Right. That means don't tackle in the game unless it's necessary. You need to practice it, though.
Well, you would agree, Coach, you would agree that it wasn't necessary for Miss Street to be slide tackled 15 times. You'd agree with that.
Sure.
Didn't have to do that, right? Didn't have to do that drill.
No, coaches have a lot of discretion in.
Well, you can put the slide down. So even after you saw that 3 months before Rory died, I want to talk about what happened that day. Now, we agree the temperature that day was hot, right?
Yes.
That drill you made Rory run at Burma Road. Or not Burma Road, the slide tackling drill. That was the first time you'd ever ran that drill, right?
Yes.
And the reason you said you did that was because Rory was goofing off.
That's right.
And in your own words, nothing makes you madder than a kid who doesn't listen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can get heated, especially with someone like Rory. She's usually so respectful and listens. So it was especially disappointing to see her, not taking it seriously.
And you think she was goofing off because she missed passes, right?
Right. Well, no, that wasn't goofing off. I mean, then she wasn't listening to me. She wasn't listening to critiques and paying attention, really.
Okay, but the goofing off, the dogging it, you called it,
Yeah.
was passes, right?
Right.
Missing shots
Yeah.
and slowing down.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone has an off day, and so that's fine. Sometimes the girls just don't do as well as they normally do.
And when your girls don't do as well as they could, you teach them a lesson, right?
Right.
You send them to Burman Road to teach them a lesson.
Right, but I want to be clear about something. The Burma Road was in response to her not listening to me, right?
Understood. To teach her a lesson.
Right.
I understand. To teach her a lesson. Okay. Now I want to talk about something we discussed at your deposition. You were asked a question if Rory was getting hurt while she was doing that drill, right?
Yes.
And you responded she was struggling, right?
I'm sorry, which drill now are we talking about?
Slide tackling drill, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she was struggling during the slide. It was challenging, for sure.
She was struggling, and you said that was the point of it.
Right. It was meant to be physically challenging, a taxing sort of drill.
And after the 5th time she did it, the 15th time, she died.
Yes, but she wasn't struggling in any out of the ordinary way that would make me think she needed medical attention. In fact, she kept doing it. She did it 15 times.
No further questions.
Okay. 16:14 remaining. Any redirect for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, give me 1 second to set your clock. 34:44 remaining. Time will start when you begin talking.
Coach Taylor, I think you were trying to say something on cross. So I want to make sure you get a chance to be heard. You were talking about access to water. Could the players access that water that was on the field at any time during practice?
Yes.
Now, at any point during that practice, did any person on that field say anything about Rory not doing well or needing medical attention?
No, no one said anything to me.
Did any of her teammates bring anything to your attention regarding Rory?
No.
Did the medical trainer tell you anything that would suggest Rory needed medical attention?
No.
Did anyone prior to September 7th, 2018 tell you that Rory was using cocaine?
No, I had no idea.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
And you have 33:56 remaining. Anything further from this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, can she be excused?
May the witness be excused. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything further from defendant for your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Jordan Street via deposition.
Okay.
Your Honor, my co-counsel is going to be reading the answers if that's all right.
Sounds great.
I want to cite court and counsel to page 3 of Jordan Street's deposition, starting with line 1. Andrew, let me know when you've got that in front of you.
I'm good.
Were you at the practice that day?
No, I was at work.
So do you have any information or knowledge about what happened?
No, other than what I've heard from others about what happened, but I didn't see it.
Citing court and counsel to page 5 of Jordan's deposition. Line 12. Did you push Rory to be an athlete?
I don't know if I would use the word push. I encouraged Rory to work hard at sports and at everything else in her life. I taught Rory to never show weakness and to never complain. I wanted her to be tough, to play through the pain, because that is what makes a champion. Rory was tough because I made her tough.
Did you ever hold Rory back in school?
We did, just 1 year. We held her back in the 7th grade so that she could get bigger and faster, which we thought would give her an advantage in high school playing against younger kids. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but it's actually pretty common now. College is expensive, and we wanted to give Rory the best chance we could at getting a scholarship. Hell, Rory might have been good enough to go pro. I certainly saw that possibility and encouraged Rory to keep that option open.
Did you have to stay on top of Rory to make sure she was practicing and keeping up with exercise?
Not any more than any other parent of a teenager. Rory sometimes wanted to goof off instead of following Coach Taylor's non-practice exercise routines, and I would have to remind her of what soccer means for college and maybe a pro career.
Signing court and counsel to page 7 of Jordan Street's deposition, line 16. When you were at Waco High, did you play any sports?
I played soccer just like Rory, but we won a state championship while I was there.
When you were playing soccer at Waco High, did you ever have to run Burma Road?
Hell yeah, we did. I remember doing that when we were dogging it or if we weren't in the correct position or something. Coach would send us off to run Burma Road. But I'll tell you this, none of my coaches ever made me or any other kid keep going when it was obvious we were exhausted. Discipline is one thing, but that is just dangerous.
Do you know what a slide tackle is?
Sure.
Are slide tackles part of the game of soccer?
Of course they are. Turn on any game and you're going to see players at every level performing slide tackles. That's part of the deal.
Your Honor, that's it for that portion of Jordan Street's deposition. Defense now calls via deposition Jess Merriweather. Andrew, let me know when you've got that one in front of you. Citing court and counsel to page 2 of Jess Merriweather's deposition. Line 6. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Hello there. My name is Jess Merriweather.
How old are you, Jess?
I am 28 years old.
Where do you live?
I live in Waco, Texas.
How long have you lived in Waco, Texas?
Just a couple of years now. I grew up in Houston, then I went to Texas A&M for undergrad, and then I got a master's degree in sports training from A&M as well. After that, I worked for a couple of years at another high school in College Station before I got the job at Waco High.
And what is your job at Waco High?
I'm an athletic trainer, and I also teach health.
What is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
We have various teams and activities at the school that involve some level of physical activity and competition. Everything from football to soccer to volleyball to cheerleading and drill team. As a trainer, I work with the students to participate in those activities and to keep them healthy and in shape and to treat any injuries that they have.
Line 8. How long have you been an athletic trainer?
About 2 years now.
Signing court and counsel to page 4 of Jess Merriweather's deposition, line 4. Have you worked with Coach Taylor?
I have.
In what capacity?
As a trainer. So I've attended soccer practices and soccer games where Coach Taylor was a coach. I've worked with Coach Taylor in order to treat injured players, and I've worked with Coach Taylor just overseeing the students during practices and games.
Line 18. Do you know who Rory Street was?
Yeah, I knew Rory. Very sad what happened.
How do you know Rory?
Well, she was a varsity soccer player, so I worked with her as a trainer for the varsity soccer team, just like any other player.
Citing court and counsel to page 8 of Merriweather's deposition, line 8. Were you at practice the day Rory died?
I was.
Do you see Rory running Burma Road?
I saw Rory over on Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely.
Did you see Rory during the slide tackling drill?
Again, I saw that it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I didn't watch closely.
What were you doing while all of this was going on?
I was taping another student's ankle about 40 yards away.
At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in any way that would have indicated she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
Signing court and counsel to page 9, lines 1 and 2. Did Rory ever say anything to you about feeling bad that day?
Nope, never said anything to me. And here's the thing. I'm there to take care of those players, and they know it. I'm kind of a combination trainer and guardian to the team. So they trust me, and I trust them to tell me if something is wrong or if they're hurting. Rory didn't say a word.
Line 9. Are players allowed to get water when they want it?
Yes, all they have to do is ask, even if they're not on a water break.
That's all from the defense in terms of Jess Merriweather. Your Honor, at this time, the defense offers the autopsy report into evidence. It is admissible over any hearsay objection, as it is a public record pursuant to 8038.
The objection?
No objection to the autopsy, Your Honor.
No objection, you said?
No objection.
Okay, it is admitted and you can publish it.
As well as a toxicology report, Your Honor.
Any objection to that?
No objection to that either, Your Honor.
Okay, it's admitted and you can also publish that.
Your Honor, at this time, defense rests and re-raises our Rule 50 judgment as a matter of law.
That's denied. You have 2806 remaining.
Your Honor, can I have my time as well again?
1614.
Thank you. Before we go into closing arguments, can I ask for a 2-3 minute break?
Sure, we can take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 1:02 my time. Scoring judges, if you go away to the bathroom, like I said, please turn on your camera. That way I'm aware that you're not with us. All right, Mr. Love, you've got 1614. Anytime that you don't use right now, I'll, of course, reserve for rebuttal, and I'll let you know how much time you have for rebuttal at the end of it. Once you hit 10 minutes, I'll give you the 10-minute hand signal. I'll give you then, sequential counting down. Once you hit 1 minute, I'll give you the 1 minute mark. Half a minute, I'll give you this, and then I'll cut you off at 0, okay?
I appreciate that. The last judge just did 5, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll get you at 10, and then I'll even give you like the 10-second countdown if we get to that point, okay?
Thank you so much.
Of course. Whenever you start talking, I'll start the time.
Because Coach Taylor lost her temper, Rory Street lost her life. When the coach saw Rory struggling to run, make passes, make shots on the goal, she didn't just refuse to help Rory, ask Rory what was wrong. She took steps to make it worse. Now, I don't know. It could have been that the anger with her star player not performing up to the task caused her to mistake Rory's weakening pace for defiance, not listening. Or maybe she just ignored the signs. But when she sent her running, we got to ask ourselves, for what? To teach her a lesson? Members of the jury, it's very clear, or Your Honor, it's very clear that she had a point to make. Because when Rory was struggling in that drill where she's getting kicked to the ground again and again and again, she admitted she saw Rory struggling. She said, when asked, was Rory getting hurt? That was my point. That was the point of that exercise. The law is clear. As a coach on the soccer field, Coach Taylor had a duty to protect Rory, a duty to exercise ordinary care as any other reasonable soccer coach would. Like a teacher in a school classroom, she had a duty to protect Rory and to recognize the signs she should have seen, the signs of heat stroke. But even more than that, she went to an annual meeting where all of the coaches in Texas who teach high school soccer gathered together to learn tips and tricks and other techniques that they all agreed when they got together, they were going to put up on a PowerPoint and take those home with them. Can we get that PowerPoint up? This was June 15th, 2018, from the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association annual meeting. There are only 2 slides that we have from this PowerPoint. 2 slides, one addressing practicing in heat and one addressing slide tackles. Let's go to the second slide. 3 months before Rory died, she saw this slide. When teaching slide tackling, we'll go back. When teaching slide tackling, not in the game, not when people are playing for points and to go on in the season in the championship, when you're teaching it. That's practice. When you're teaching slide tackling, instruct your players that you don't tackle unless it's necessary. Coach agreed with me that Rory getting tackled 15 times that day was not necessary. And any reasonable person would know that that drill she did was not necessary. So the tips and tricks she learned when she gathered with all those coaches who coached in the state of Texas together, she didn't follow them. At least not that one. So let's go to the second slide. When temperatures reach 100 degrees or above, practices must include a 5-minute break every 15 minutes of practice. You heard from one of the players on the team that they know for sure Rory did not get those breaks. Coach Taylor said, I don't remember, but you know for sure that at least one person did. She didn't get to go sit in the shade because there was no shade. She didn't get to go catch her breath because she didn't get a break too. And it was 103 degrees at least when they started practice. And it wasn't getting any cooler throughout the day. And I understand, this is Waco, Texas. It gets hot. But that's why in Texas, these coaches decide to get together and learn that this is the thing that they should do. But she didn't do that. But not only did she fail to follow these guidelines that came from the High School Association of Soccer, she failed to recognize the signs that even an 18-year-old girl running next to her could see. Signs that she was suffering from a heat stroke. Can we get that chart, Ms. Doig? The signs that she was suffering from a heat stroke, Your Honor. First point, missing easy passes, missed easy shots, trouble following directions, disoriented, sweating hard, pale, chest pains. She complained of to her friend. She was feeling sick, feeling funny, struggling. She was worn down, not running as fast as she could, lollygagging. These are the signs that Rory was not performing the way she should. These are the signs that she was in danger, that something was wrong. This is the star player. This is someone who doesn't show up without a good attitude, according to the coach, on most days. Something was different, and she should have realized, at least when she was close enough to pull her off the ground, that something was wrong. That was her duty. But she did not just ignore the guidelines. She did not just ignore the signs. She actively made Rory's situation worse. She taught her a lesson by making her run that Burma Road after doing an hour scrimmage. Still wasn't fast enough for her, so she created that new drill, that brand new practice drill just for Rory. Because the point of that drill was to make her struggle. Now, I want to spend a moment, because I think the evidence is clear, Your Honor, that from the guidelines and the signs and the actions she took after those signs were there, that she has breached her duty. But I really want to take a moment to talk about causation, because it seems like that's the thrust of the defense's case. I told you we expected they would probably bring up the cocaine. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear. There's no evidence on this record that Rory showed up to soccer practice that day high on cocaine. In fact, the autopsy report makes it very clear that Rory was not a habitual cocaine user. Let's show the autopsy report, please, Ms. Doig. The autopsy report makes it perfectly clear that the findings they found were that this was indicative of a first-time use of cocaine, indicated infrequent or first-time use of cocaine. This is not a habitual user. And there's absolutely no evidence that this caused her death. We had a top cardiologist examine the autopsy report, examine the toxicology report. He's the chief of cardiology at McLennan Hospital, has been for decades. He examined her heart, he examined the record, and he was able to determine that her cause of death was heat stroke. And we know it had to be because there were things there that cocaine wouldn't have caused. A brain edema. That doesn't happen from cocaine, that happens from heat stroke. And who did they bring to tell you that the top cardiologist in the county is wrong? They brought you a toxicologist who doesn't even have a medical degree. He's a BS. And his only job ever was to be a consultant for trials. It doesn't get a more hired gun than that. A toxicologist who had never treated a patient, a toxicologist who had never worked on a heart, a person who has no experience in the field of cardiology, who only works for people who pay him to come to court. The science is one-sided here. Causation is clear. But I want to talk a moment about what the cardiologist says in terms of heat stroke compared to the signs of danger. If we could bring up the other chart we have, Ms. Doig. Signs of heat stroke. Now, I want to spend a moment. Missed easy passes, missed easy shots, trouble following directions. They may not sound like symptoms of a heat stroke, but they are. Because as you saw in the report I pulled up earlier, confusion is one of the symptoms that heat stroke is coming. And that explains why the player who always played so well was missing passes, why she was missing shots, because she was confused. It wasn't that she wasn't listening to coach. It's because she was confused because she was suffering from heat exhaustion. That's the science. That's what caused this death. The things that coach could have done. Told her to go get a drink. Told her to take 5. Asked her, what's wrong? What's going on today, Rory? Asked her, are you okay? Simple little things she could have done that may have saved this girl's life. How about don't send the 15th person to go kick her down? How about don't make her run this brand new drill at all? That's the negligence and that's the causation. Members of the jury, but Your Honor, I want to be perfectly clear. What happened in this case? It's not just negligence. Making that girl line up, making those 15 kids line up while she's there by herself as they each kick her down is not just negligence. It's cruel. The greater weight of the evidence supports liability. Find her liable.
You have 450 remaining, Mr. Love, for your rebuttal.
I'm sorry, you said 550?
I said 450.
450? Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so let's see, 2806. And Mr. Silbro, whenever you start talking, I will start the timer.
May it please the court. This is a difficult case. And I'm not going to stand before you and pretend that I understand what it feels like to lose a child. And in those situations, it's natural to want to place the blame in other places. But the truth, Your Honor, the hard truth in this case is that Rory Street had cocaine in her system when she died. And it was Rory Street's cocaine use that caused her death, not Coach Taylor. Now, we have not, throughout the entire course of this trial, disputed the fact Coach Taylor is disciplined, that she believes in hard work, that she believes in putting the team before the player. But we heard today, the evidence showed that Coach Taylor treats and views her players as if they were her own kids. Her own kid plays on that team. Coach Taylor wants to see her players succeed. She wants to see them play at the next level, and when discipline is needed to get that player back on track, she uses it, like any other coach would. But like every other coach, Coach Taylor could not foresee, had no knowledge of the fact that Rory Street was using cocaine. Now, the plaintiff brought this case. This is the plaintiff's burden. They had to prove to you by preponderance of the evidence that Coach Taylor failed to exercise ordinary care and that her conduct was the proximate cause of Rory Street's death. And I want to show you why the plaintiff has failed to meet that burden. I want to show you how they failed to show Coach Taylor did not exercise ordinary care. Andrew, will you pull up the slides for us? Now, we heard a lot about these association guidelines, and I want to make it extremely abundantly clear. These are guidelines. These are not rules. This is not a mandatory thing Coach Taylor or any other coach in Texas has to follow. They are merely suggestions. But even if we took these as rules, even if we pretended this was the law, I want to show you why still Coach Taylor did not do anything wrong pursuant to these guidelines. Now, the guidelines suggest that practice should not exceed 2 hours. Your Honor, we heard no evidence today that would suggest that practice went longer than that. The only testimony we heard was from Aubrey Saracen to say that practice had gone on for about an hour and 15 minutes. That's it. Now, there was a big deal made about the breaks every 15 minutes, but we heard from Aubrey Saracen, the plaintiff's own witness, as well as the trainer, that any time a player wanted water break, all they had to do was walk over to the water. They could take it upon themselves to go get that water. In shade, when we look at the slides, the association guidelines do not say anything about having to have shade. Again, just a suggestion. Now let's talk about Burma Road. Over the course of 35 years at Waco High, we heard no evidence that any player has ever needed medical attention after doing drills on Burma Road. Everyone who's played sports has had to do drills when they weren't doing what the coach wanted, run poles, run sprints. Burma Road was normal. Burma Road is the red herring in this case. The crux of the plaintiff's case falls on the slide tackling drill, but we heard from the plaintiff's own witness as well as ours that slide tackling is a normal part of soccer. It's expected that people are going to slide tackle. It's how You take the ball from the offensive player and put your team back on offense. And even those association guidelines with the suggestions suggest you should teach your players how to learn how to slide tackle for their own safety. Slide tackling is not the medieval practice the plaintiff wants you to believe it is. It's part of soccer, and it's something that has to be learned for player safety. Now, the plaintiff also had the burden that they had to show that the defendant's conduct was the proximate cause of Rory Street's death. The plaintiff had to specifically prove that a person using ordinary care would have foreseen, could have predicted, that Rory's death might reasonably result from running those drills. Your Honor, again, we heard no evidence from the plaintiff that anyone has ever died as a result of running either a slide tackle drill or Burma Road. Then we will look at the other side of things. Coach Taylor could not foresee, could not predict that his star athlete was using cocaine. It's like the second-round pick Len Bias, star basketball player, and nobody could foresee that at 19 years old, Len Bias would die on the basketball court because of cocaine. Because of that, Your Honor, we've asserted an affirmative defense of comparative negligence. Now, comparative negligence, that is our burden in this case. And to support that, we offered the report of Mr. London. Now, Mr. London states, as you heard throughout this trial, that Rory had cocaine in his system. Andrew, will you pull up the tox report and show where the cocaine was in the system? Now let's go to Mr. London's report. Now the plaintiff said that there's no evidence to suggest that Rory was using or high on drugs at the time of practice. That toxicology report, as well as the autopsy report, were done the day after she died, suggesting she had cocaine in her system. The plaintiff said himself that it was a first-time use. That evidence points to the fact that she was high on cocaine that day. And Mr. London offers implications of what happens when you use cocaine. Cocaine usage can ultimately lead to cardiac arrhythmia, heart attacks, stroke, and heart failure. Now, the plaintiff put forth an expert of Dr. McConaughey. Now, they referred to Dr. McConaughey as a top cardiologist. But, Your Honor, neither expert was allowed to examine the heart. All we had was an autopsy report and a toxicology report. And I think it's reasonable to defer to the toxicologist on matters of toxicology, and that report showed cocaine. Now, I want to show you why Mr. McConaughey's report is not as sufficient as Mr. London's. Andrew, will you pull up Mr. London's report that talks about Mr. McConaughey? Mr. London offers guidance on this, and I want to read this word for word. Dr. McConaughey describes the following symptoms for Rory on the day in question: struggling, unusually pale, feeling funny, complained of chest pain, hands on her hips, breathing heavy, groaning, twitching, convulsing. Many of these symptoms are consistent with cocaine use. And Mr. London went on to say that Rory complained of chest pain, feeling funny, which could be related to a number of the symptoms of cocaine use, groaning, which could be related to nausea, and convulsing on the ground. Again, all these symptoms are consistent with cocaine use. Your Honor, the truth. The hard truth in this case is that Rory Street had abused cocaine. And it was her cocaine use that led to her death on September 7th, 2018. Not Coach Taylor's conduct. Fine for Coach Taylor.
All right, give me just a second to reset your clock for rebuttal. Okay, so 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Whenever you begin talking, the timer will start.
Your Honor, the only thing Mr. London's report proves is that if you pay someone enough money, they'll say anything. Because that's what Mr. London does for a living. You should not take his report with any credibility. You should take it with a grain of salt. Because as they said in the beginning, he's worked in over 500 cases. Only in his career has he been a consultant for trials. That's how he makes his living. You should believe the cardiologist who works in this county, who runs the cardiology unit in this county, of where Waco, Texas is located. Because the fact is, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. It's not because Rory was useless or lollygagging that she died. It's because Coach Taylor lost her temper. That's why she lost her life. Bottom line.
Alrighty, guys. Was that it, Mr. Lowe? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I said find them liable, but I may have said it a little softly.
Oh, it's okay, no worries. Okay, so scoring judges, if you can submit your scores, just hang out in the room until I get confirmation that those are tabbed. Competitors do the same thing. I'm stepping off camera, just eating some lunch real quick. But very good job, second chairs. I enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, and gonna get y'all out of here pretty quick.
Thank you,
Judge.
Judge.